Thank you, Stephanie. Pearl Buck grew up in China from 1892 to 1934. Her life experience in China created within her a deep admiration for the Chinese people, language, and culture that continued through her lifetime. Although she lived the second half of her life in the United States, she continued to promote cross-cultural understanding and education about the East throughout her lifetime. Ms. Buck demonstrated her great love for the Chinese people through consistent advocacy. In 1937, when war broke out between Japan and China, Pearl Buck and her husband and publisher, Richard Walsh, worked together to raise awareness in the US about what was happening in Asia. They worked to raise awareness in the United States and formed the Chinese Emergency Relief Committee to send Chinese citizens critical supplies. In 1941, she became the chairwoman of the United China Relief to raise financial support for China. At a fundraising event that year, Chinese Ambassador Hu Shi presented Buck with the Order of Jade, an award given in recognition of her work for this country, for his country. The couple also bought Asia magazine, providing writers a place to discuss the current political events and culture in Asia. That same year, Buck and Walsh founded the East-West Association to raise awareness about the East in American society and promote important contributions resulting from a connection between the East and West. Next slide, please. Stephanie.
Lin Yutang is a well-known Chinese novelist, philosopher, and linguist. The photo that you see now is prolixed by赛珍珠with children of Lin Yutang during a radio broadcast. Lin Yutang is a friend of Pearl and Richard, who they worked on several projects together. Lin Yutang wrote articles for the East and West Association magazine regularly. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. And the association and its magazine, I'm sorry, can you go back a little bit? Thank you. And the association and the magazine help promote the repeal of the Chinese Exclusion Act in their media and public relations work. Next slide, please.
Ms. Buck was steadfast in her pursuit to overturn Chinese exclusion laws, barring Chinese immigrants from entering the United States. Together, she and Richard Walsh formed the Citizens Committee to repeal Chinese exclusion. The committee began as a relatively small group of notable public figures to call for a bill to repeal the Chinese Exclusion Act. Chaired by Richard J. Walsh, Ms. Buck was a committee member and most notably the avid spokeswoman for the committee. She repeatedly used her voice and publications to end targeted attempts to block immigration. The committee sent the pamphlet you see behind me, Our Chinese Wall, to explain why the act needed to be repealed. Donations were sent by supporters as well as additional names of potential sympathizers, crowdfunding before an internet. In this way, support for the repeal grew steadily. The committee was one of at least 8 such groups and was highly influential in organizing support for the repeal of federal law. The powerful committee attracted larger forces to lobby Congress for repeal. Next slide, please. Pictured behind me is a telegram from Pearl S. Buck appealing to the U.S. House of Representatives Committee on Immigration and Naturalization to put forward the bill to repeal the exclusion action. Here, Pearl states that Chinese wives should be able to join their American husbands. Also pictured is Pearl Buck emerging in 1943 following her testimony before the House Committee on Immigration and Naturalization. She emerges receiving warm thanks from a group of young Chinese women. Next slide, please. And here is the announcement of victory to committee members that the bill was passed. In 1949, with the Exclusion Act repealed, Pearl S. Buck founded Welcome House, an international adoption agency. In 1964, she expanded the reach of her humanitarianism to provide education, healthcare, and nutrition for Asian children so that they might thrive in their own communities and countries. These countries included China, South Korea, the Philippines, Vietnam, and Thailand. Next slide, please. Mateen.